The road to Emmaus, a story of the day everything changed. Let me take you back, not to a church, not to a painting on a wall, not to some distant, comfortable religious idea. I want to take you to a road, a dusty, 7-mile road outside Jerusalem, to two men who had just watched everything they believed in collapse. Because before we talk about the miracle, you need to understand the despair. 3 days earlier, the city of Jerusalem had been electric. Thousands of pilgrims had flooded in from every corner of the land for Passover, the great feast that remembered how God had once rescued his people from slavery in Egypt. The streets were packed. The air smelled of roasting lamb and burning incense. Merchants were shouting, children were running. Priests were moving through the crowds in their white robes, and somewhere in the middle of all of that, Jesus of Nazareth rode in on a donkey, and the crowd lost their minds. People were throwing their cloaks on the ground in front of him, tearing branches from the trees and waving them in the air, shouting at the top of their lungs, "Hosanna! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." Now, if you don't understand why that moment was so explosive, let me explain. The Jewish people had been waiting for centuries for a king, for a deliverer, someone who would come and finally break the chains of foreign occupation. First, it was the Babylonians, then the Persians, then the Greeks, and now the Romans. Roman soldiers stood on every corner. Roman taxes crushed ordinary families. Roman law decided who lived and who died, and the people were tired. So when Jesus rode into Jerusalem, many of them saw exactly what they had been praying for their entire lives: a king arriving to take his throne, a revolution about to begin. We were there. We saw it with our own eyes, and we believed it. That week, Jesus taught every day in the temple courts. We followed him. We listened to every word. He spoke about the kingdom of God, about justice, about mercy, about a new kind of world. He debated the religious leaders and left them speechless every time. He healed people right there in the temple courts, blind men seeing, lame men walking. The energy was unlike anything I had ever felt. Something was about to happen. You could feel it in the air. And then Thursday night came. We didn't know it then, but that was the last night everything would feel normal. Jesus gathered his closest followers for a meal. He took bread and broke it. He took a cup of wine and passed it around the table. He said things that none of us fully understood in the moment. "This is my body given for you. This is my blood, poured out for many." We thought he was speaking in metaphors. He often did. After the meal, he went to a garden to pray, and that's where they arrested him. What happened next? I still struggle to describe. The trials were a mockery. He was passed from the Jewish high priest to Herod to Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor. Pilate himself said he found no guilt in the man, but the crowd was screaming for blood. And Pilate, a man with all the power in the world, was too afraid to use it. He handed Jesus over to be crucified. If you have never seen a Roman crucifixion, consider yourself fortunate. It was designed to be the most humiliating, the most painful, the most public death imaginable. It was a Roman's way of sending a message to anyone who dared to challenge their power. This is what happens to your kings. This is what happens to your hope. By Friday afternoon, it was over. The man we had followed, the man who had healed the sick and fed thousands, the man whose words had made our hearts feel like they were catching fire, was dead, and they sealed him in a tomb. I want you to sit with that for a moment, because we live on the other side of the story. We know how it ends. We've heard it 100 times. We sing songs about it. We put it on jewelry. But for us, standing outside that tomb on Friday evening, there was no other side of the story yet. There was just silence, and stone, and the slow, crushing weight of grief. Everything we had believed, every hope, every dream, every prayer, was locked inside that tomb. We had been wrong about everything, or so we thought. Saturday passed like a bad dream. We stayed together, huddled in a borrowed room in the city, doors locked, voices low. Nobody knew what to do. Nobody knew what to say. The disciples who had been closest to Jesus were completely broken. Peter hadn't spoken since the night of the arrest. The look on his face was something beyond sadness. It was shame. Saturday night came, then Sunday morning. And then everything got strange. Before sunrise, a group of women from our company went to the tomb. They were going to finish preparing the body with spices and oils. Something that couldn't be completed before the Sabbath began on Friday evening. It was a last act of love, a small, quiet, heartbroken kindness. They came back, running, and what they said, nobody knew what to do with it. The stone had been rolled away. The tomb was open and empty. They described two figures, shining, blinding white, standing inside the tomb. And these figures had said something to them that sounded completely impossible. He is not here. He has risen, just as he said. The women were shaking as they told us. Their faces were pale, and their eyes were wide, and none of us knew whether what we were seeing was grief or madness or something else entirely. Peter and John ran to the tomb to see for themselves. They came back confused. The tomb was indeed empty, the burial cloths folded neatly. But no one had seen Jesus, no one had spoken to him. There was no explanation that made sense. And in the absence of an explanation, the room got very quiet, very heavy. And after a while, my companion and I made a decision. We were going home. His name was Cleopas, my companion. We had known each other for years, had traveled together to Jerusalem for this very Passover, full of excitement and expectation. Now we were walking in the opposite direction, heads down, talking through everything that had happened, trying to make sense of it, trying to figure out where it had all gone wrong. The road from Jerusalem to Emmaus runs through hills and olive groves. On any other day, it would have been beautiful. That day, we didn't notice. We had been walking for maybe an hour when someone fell into step beside us. I don't know where he came from. I don't remember hearing footsteps approaching. He was just suddenly there, walking beside us as if he had always been there. He asked us what we were talking about. We stopped walking. Cleopas looked at him with something between exhaustion and disbelief. "Are you the only visitor to Jerusalem," he said, "who doesn't know the things that have happened there in these days?" The stranger looked at us calmly. "What things?" he said. And so we told him. We told him everything, from the beginning, about Jesus of Nazareth, his teaching, his miracles, the way he had overturned everything we thought we knew about God and power and what it means to be human, about the entry into Jerusalem and the electricity in the air, about the arrest and the trials and the crucifixion. And then, and this is the part that still catches in my throat when I remember it, we told him about our hope. We had hoped, we said. We had hoped that he was the one to redeem Israel. Those words, "we had hoped," in the past tense, because hope, when it dies, becomes a wound. And we were bleeding. We told him about the women, about the empty tomb, about the angels, about how some of the others had gone and confirmed the tomb was empty. But nobody had seen Jesus. Nobody could explain it, and we didn't know what to do with any of it. The stranger was quiet for a moment after we finished, and then he said something that stopped us cold. "How foolish you are," he said, "and how slow to believe all that the prophets have spoken." There was no cruelty in it, no condescension. It was the tone of someone who could see something you couldn't see yet, and desperately wanted you to see it too. Did not the Messiah have to suffer these things, and then enter his glory? And then he began to speak. I have spent years trying to find the right words to describe what happened next on that road. He started with Moses, with the very first books of Scripture, the stories of creation and the fall and the long, aching human search for God. And he began to show us things we had read 100 times, but never seen. How the whole story of Israel was building towards something. How every sacrifice, every rescue, every act of redemption in the ancient texts was pointing, like a finger pointing at the sun, toward one moment in history. He moved through the Psalms. He moved through the prophets. Isaiah, who wrote 7 centuries before Jesus was born, who described a suffering servant, despised and rejected, wounded for the transgressions of his people. Zechariah, who spoke of a king coming humbly, riding on a donkey. Daniel, who described a figure coming in glory after a time of great darkness. And as he spoke, something happened inside us. It started small, like an ember you're not sure is still alive, a faint warmth, somewhere deep in the chest, and as he kept speaking, it grew. I want to be careful here, because I don't want to over-romanticize it. It wasn't like fireworks or visions. It was quieter than that, and somehow more powerful. It was the feeling of something that had been broken, beginning, slowly, impossibly, to make sense. By the time we reached Emmaus, the sun was already low in the sky. The stranger moved as if he intended to keep walking, and something in us, we couldn't explain it, refused to let him go. "Stay with us," we said. "The day is almost over. It's getting late. Come inside and eat." So he came in. We sat down at the table together, and he did something interesting, something that, in the ancient world, was normally done by the host, the person whose house it was, whose table it was. He took the bread, he gave thanks, he broke it, and he handed it to us. In that single moment, everything changed. I cannot tell you exactly what it was. Maybe it was the way his hands moved. Maybe it was the words he used when he gave thanks. Words we had heard before, in a garden, around another table, on a hillside in Galilee. Maybe it was something in his eyes when he looked at us. But in that moment, we knew, the stranger sitting at our table, the one who had walked beside us for 7 miles, who had opened the scriptures to us, whose words had set something burning in our hearts, was Jesus. Alive, not a ghost, not a vision, not wishful thinking born out of grief. Him. And then he was gone. We sat there for a long moment, just staring at each other across the table, the bread still warm in our hands. And then Cleopas said what I was already thinking. Did you feel it? On the road when he was talking to us? Did your heart feel like it was burning? Yes. Yes. We hadn't recognized him with our eyes, but something deeper than our eyes had known, something in us, had been responding to him the entire time, reaching toward him, warming in his presence. Even when our minds couldn't put it together, we didn't finish the meal. We got up from the table. It was fully dark now, the road dangerous, the journey back 7 miles uphill. And we ran back to Jerusalem. Because you cannot sit still when something like that happens to you. You cannot keep it to yourself. You cannot quietly fold it into your life and carry on. When you have walked with the risen Jesus, even without knowing it, even in the middle of your grief and confusion and shattered hope, everything changes. We found the others, still gathered in that locked room. Before we could say a word, they said it first. He is risen. He has appeared to Simon. And then we told them about the road, about the stranger, about the way the scriptures opened up before us like a landscape we had always lived in but never really seen, about the bread, about the moment we knew. I have thought about that walk many times since then, and the thing that stays with me, the thing I keep coming back to, is this. He walked beside us while we were in despair. He didn't wait for us to figure it out. He didn't appear in a flash of glory and demand that we believe. He didn't show up only after we had cleaned ourselves up and gotten our faith in order. He found us on the road, grieving, confused, walking in the wrong direction, and he walked with us. He asked questions he already knew the answers to, because he wanted us to speak. He wanted us to voice the pain and the disappointment and the shattered hope out loud to him. And then, slowly, gently, mile by mile, he began to open something in us, not forcing, not overwhelming, just walking, just talking, just being present. There is something I want to leave you with. Maybe you are on a road right now that feels a lot like the road to Emmaus. Maybe something you believed in has collapsed. Maybe a hope you carried for years has died and been buried, and the stone has been rolled in front of it. Maybe you are walking away from something, head down, heart heavy, trying to make sense of a story that doesn't seem to have a good ending. And if that is where you are, I want you to hear this. He is on the road with you. You may not recognize him yet. He may look like a stranger. He may come in the form of a conversation, a moment of unexpected clarity, a sentence in an old book that suddenly catches fire in your chest. But he is there, and at the right moment, over broken bread, in a quiet room, on an ordinary evening, your eyes will open and you will know. He is risen. He walks with us still.